The press briefing had been proceeding as expected. Questions, answers, the usual exchanges between reporters and Karoline Leavitt, who stood at the podium with her signature poise. She had done this countless times before, navigating the room with confidence, handling the media with precision. But just as the briefing seemed to be winding down, a voice cut through the routine. "No cross today?" The question came from a reporter near the front, his tone laced with sarcasm, his smirk barely concealed. "I guess the faith was just a prop, huh?" The shift in the room was immediate. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Fingers froze over keyboards. A heavy silence settled over the space as dozens of eyes turned toward Karoline, waiting for her reaction. The tension was palpable, like the moment before a storm. For a brief second, Karoline simply stood there, her expression unreadable. But she didn't flinch. She didn't rush to respond or show any sign of irritation. Instead, she let the weight of the moment settle. "Next question, please," she said, her voice calm, controlled. "It's irrelevant." But the reporter wasn't satisfied. He leaned forward, pushing harder. "Irrelevant?" His voice rose, daring her to engage. "I think it's pretty relevant. Looks to me like your faith was just for show all along." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The accusation wasn't just about a piece of jewelry. It was about who she was, what she stood for. The tension in the room thickened, the air heavy with unspoken anticipation. Everyone was waiting to see what Karoline would do next. The air in the briefing room grew heavier, thick with unspoken tension. The reporter's words still hung in the air like a challenge, his smirk widening as if he had already won. But Karoline Leavitt remained still. She didn't shift, didn't react. Just let the silence stretch, making every second feel like an eternity. Then she finally spoke. "Yesterday," she began, her voice steady but firm, "one of your colleagues suggested that I take off the cross I wear around my neck. He said it might be seen as political, that it could distract from the issues we're here to discuss." The murmurs in the room quieted, the weight of her words drawing everyone in. Some reporters exchanged glances, sensing something unexpected was unfolding. "I told him," she continued, her voice unwavering, "as I'll tell you now, that the cross I wear is not a political statement. It's not for anyone's approval. It's an expression of my love for Jesus Christ. It's personal. It's sacred." The energy in the room shifted. The sarcastic sneer on the reporter's face flickered, just slightly. Karoline took a breath, her presence commanding yet composed. "I didn't wear it today," she continued, her tone deep with meaning, "not because my faith changed, not because it wavered, but because I wanted to show you and everyone watching that faith is not something you wear. It's not about a piece of jewelry. It's about how you live." Silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that signaled something profound had just been said. And yet she wasn't done. The storm was still brewing. The room was still, every breath held in suspense. The weight of Karoline's words pressed down on the space like an unseen force, shifting the dynamic entirely. She had turned the accusation around, transforming it into something deeper, something no one had expected. But the reporter wasn't ready to back down. He leaned in, his voice dripping with condescension. "So what you're saying is, you chose not to wear it today, but you expect us to believe your faith is real?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Sounds to me like you're just trying to avoid controversy." A quiet murmur rippled through the room. The tension had evolved into something sharper, something electric. Even those who had initially dismissed the exchange as just another media confrontation now sat upright, fully engaged. Karoline, however, remained unshaken. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "What's truly disappointing," she said, her voice calm yet cutting, "is that you think faith is something that needs to be proven to you." The smirk on the reporter's face faltered. Karoline's gaze swept across the room, locking onto every journalist, every camera. "Faith," she continued, her voice rising just enough to command the space, "is not a performance. It's not a badge you wear to convince others of who you are. It lives in the choices you make, in the truth you speak, in the way you treat people, even those who try to tear you down. The room held its breath. Karoline wasn't just answering a question anymore. She was challenging everyone listening. The energy shifted again, and this time the reporter realized he wasn't in control of this conversation anymore. For the first time since he spoke, the reporter hesitated. His smirk had disappeared, replaced by something more uncertain. He had expected defensiveness, maybe even anger, but what he got was something far more powerful. Karoline held his gaze unwavering. The entire room seemed frozen, locked in the gravity of the moment. No one was typing, no one was whispering. It was as if every person there was waiting to hanging on what she would say next. "You mocked something sacred to me," she continued, her voice even but carrying an undeniable weight. "You tried to turn my faith into a spectacle, but here's what you don't understand." She took a step forward, her presence radiating calm authority. "My faith doesn't exist for your approval. It isn't something I have to prove in a press briefing or to anyone watching at home. It's not in a necklace. It's not in a symbol. It's in me." The silence in the room deepened. The weight of her words pressed against every ear, every mind. She gestured subtly to the cameras, to the journalists in front of her. "Every person in this room believes in something. It might not be the same as what I believe, but you all have something that keeps you going, that gives you purpose." Her gaze returned to the reporter. "And yet, you chose to mock mine. I don't need to fight you over it. I don't need to defend it. Because no matter what you say, no matter how you try to twist this moment, my faith remains." The reporter blinked, his posture stiffening. He had come in expecting to put Karoline on the defensive. Instead, she had turned the entire room against him. For the first time, it seemed like he was the one with something to prove. A hush had fallen over the room, thick and unrelenting. The once confident reporter, who had begun this exchange with an air of superiority, now looked uncertain. His earlier smirk was gone, his posture slightly stiffened as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Karoline, however, remained completely composed. She had taken control of the moment, not with anger, not with defensiveness, but with the quiet force of conviction. And now everyone was watching, waiting to see if the reporter had anything left to say. But before he could speak, Karoline pressed forward, her voice steady and unwavering. "You see," she said, her gaze locked onto his, "mocking someone's faith doesn't make you brave. It doesn't make you insightful. It just reveals what you don't understand." The room held its breath. There's a reason why faith has endured, why people have held on to it through wars, through loss, through suffering. It's not because they needed an accessory around their neck to remind them. It's because faith is stronger than the voices that try to tear it down. A subtle shift spread through the room. Reporters who had initially been neutral or even skeptical were now leaning in, captivated by her words. Even the cameramen, who usually remained detached, seemed to hold their lenses a little steadier, as if realizing they were witnessing something far bigger than a routine press conference. Karoline tilted her head slightly, her tone still measured but pointed. "So, I'll ask you this," she said, turning the challenge back on the reporter. "What do you believe in? What keeps you standing when the ground beneath you crumbles?" The reporter's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. And just like that, the power in the room had completely shifted. Lessons from Karoline Leavitt's response: how to stand firm in your beliefs. In a world where people are quick to challenge, mock, or undermine personal beliefs, Karoline Leavitt's response teaches us valuable lessons about strength, integrity, and self-confidence. Here's how we can apply them in our own lives. Stay calm under pressure. When faced with hostility or ridicule, don't react emotionally. Karoline didn't lash out or get defensive. She remained composed. In difficult conversations, take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and respond with calm confidence. Know what you stand for. Karoline's words carried weight because she knew her faith wasn't just a symbol, it was part of who she was. In life, whether it's your values, principles, or goals, be firm in what you believe. If you truly understand why something matters to you, others cannot shake you. Don't let others define your worth. The reporter tried to put Karoline on the defensive, but she refused to play his game. Your beliefs, identity, and values don't need validation from others. Live in a way that reflects your principles regardless of outside judgment. Shift the conversation. Instead of defending herself, Karoline turned the question back on the reporter. When someone challenges you unfairly, redirect the conversation in a way that forces them to reflect on their own beliefs. Ultimately, true strength is not about winning arguments. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when challenged.